appreciation over the years of around about 4%. But at this moment, it looks like the rand's looking very good and looking very strong. It looks like it wants to break 17, but it's very good for all of us because it'll bring down the price of petrol, and therefore, you get that immediate savings at the pumps, and there are various other areas. But the rand is looking good, so we're either super optimistic or overly pessimistic. At the moment, people are, we could see a little bit more rand strength, but I think long term again, I'm still convinced until our GDP, until more people are working, until we've got grey listing under control, I still think that we're going to have some volatility with the rand.
Okay. All right. So that means that you've got to think carefully about where you're investing your money. And Brian has already outlined where he thinks you should be putting some of that into.
When you said where you should be investing your money,
yes,
then the point is, you've got to have a look at where can you invest in what industries. Now, there's a lot of the staid industries, the SA breweries, which you were talking about before it came on air, and companies that have been around for years, the Woolworths, the Pick and Pays, the property companies. But the world has changed. People are buying differently. There's so much online shopping and that type of thing. And if you look at what you can do, if you think about where can you invest, and just to give you an example, if you want to invest in pharmaceuticals, you've got maybe 1 or 2 in South Africa. You've got 30 global. If you want to invest in technology, maybe 1 to 2 in South Africa, 15 global, which includes the Apples and the Googles and Amazons and that type of thing. Pay systems, because no one's taking cash anymore. Pay systems are the method of payment. Credit card, the Visa, the MasterCard, the Dynacard, the American Express and others. You can't invest in those industries in South Africa. Medical devices, surgery has been done very differently, and the number of hips replacements and knee replacements and all the devices being used. How many companies in South Africa are manufacturing those devices? So you need to think about that. So there's a big change. So I'm still a believer in investing globally. And remember, the companies in America are not American companies. The companies I've just mentioned, the Amazons and that, they're global companies. So they're going to be earning monies from all these other countries. And with the dollar being weaker, they're going to get better earnings, because when you earn in pound and you now translate pounds into dollar earnings, you're getting more dollars. So I think those results in the next quarter and the next 2 quarters are going to be very good. So whilst there's good opportunity in South Africa, I still think the case for me internationally is still on the cards.
Let me go to Northern Ireland, bring in Skosana. Good morning, Skosana. Hi, Brian, can you hear Skosana?
I can hear Skosana.
Wonderful.
I just want to ask this. I received a letter from SARS whereby they say I must pay tax. So I just want to ask Mr. Brian, is it a normal thing whereby even if you live abroad, you still have to pay tax in South Africa?
Okay, well, if you're living abroad, it depends if you've got money being earned in South Africa or you come out of the South African network. In other words, if you've been out of South Africa for longer than 6 months, and there's also a test number of years, then you can apply to SARS to have you deregistered. If you are deregistered, when you're saying you're paying tax on what type of investment, Kasana?
No, it is not an investment, Mr. Ban. They just sent me a letter. I don't know what is that letter for, but it says I must pay tax and it is final.
How long have you been out of South Africa?
It's almost 2 years, Mr. Ban.
And are you not likely to come back?
No. I'm still living in Bloemfontein. I'm normally going home back during December time.
And where are you earning your money? Are you earning your money in Ireland?
Yes, in Northern Ireland, Mr.
And are you paying tax there?
Yes.
Yes, so we have double taxation arrangements whereby if you're paying tax in another country, then when you submit your tax return to SARS, you show your earnings, you show the tax paid, and the chances are, because of the double taxation agreements, that they'll do the calculation, and if you overpaid in Ireland compared to South Africa, you won't pay tax. If you've underpaid, but then the underpaying on overseas, I think there's a limit. You can earn up to 1.25 million internationally before you do pay any tax. So you need to get hold of SARS, but just be very careful, because a lot of make sure that's a legitimate letter, because I get regular information from SARS asking me for information. I send it to my tax practitioner, and then he says to me, no, it's a scam. So I tell you what, Kasana, what I'll do is, if my producer could just take back your number, I'll give you a call. I'll gladly do it for you, because I think you're the first caller we've ever had calling us from Northern Ireland.
and I must say, Skosana is a regular listener of the show. So Skosana, Brian will help you out, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, Kasana.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you know what I must do? I think I must under mattress like Ramaphosa.
Okay, Kasana, we'll take your number. Okay.
Skosana out in Northern Ireland. Yeah, Skosana relocated to Northern Ireland 2 years ago.
Our reach is
He's
far.
been in touch, and he listens to the show religiously. Listens to the station and to keep up with what's happening at home. So, all right, Skosana, Brian is going to help you out on that one. Of course, it is your question and answer for Brian this week. So we are dealing with some of the questions you've asked during the month. But of course, it is really your show. So I'll continue taking your questions. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. It's 10:30. Time for the latest news headlines.
Thanks, Cathy, and a very good morning to you. With the news headlines, ke Modupi Makgalemele. The Traditional Leaders Organization, Contralesa, has called on the National Police Commissioner to come up with strategies to deal with crime, especially murder cases, in the country. Action SA will today lay criminal charges against Justice Minister Thembi Simelane at the Polokwane Police Station in Limpopo. And U.S. President Joe Biden will travel to the hard-hit state of North Carolina today to survey the damage there, as whole communities remain cut off due to flooding from Hurricane Helene. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand currently trading at 17 rand 32 to the dollar, 23 rand 10 to the pound, and 19 rand 25 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE is mainly weekend mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are mixed this hour. Gold is trading at $2,644, platinum at $985 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $71.19 a barrel.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Need a loan? Pay for what you need when you need it with a personal loan from Nedbank. And if you open a My Goals Plus or My Goals Premium account, you could enjoy 200 Rand cashback every month for the duration of your loan. That's 200 Rand every month to buy extra groceries or save for a rainy day. Visit nedbank.co.za and join the bank that's best for your loans. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
It's time to crown Miss World South Africa 2024. Tune in to S3 this Saturday on the 5th of October at 8 p.m. as Miss World South Africa 2024 takes center stage. This year's pageant will be taking place live at the Sun City Super Bowl with tickets available at Quicket. Channel your inner star with the 2024 Miss World South Africa finale this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
All right, we continue with Brian Hirsch. I'm taking your questions for Brian. I see lots of you on the line and on the WhatsApp voice note. So we'll get, maybe let me try and see. Let's take callers and then we'll come back to our questions, Brian. Salumani in Joburton, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Dumelo Cathy.
Hi, sir.
Hi. Sorry, Brian, I think I don't have the vocabulary to try to describe the question, so I'd rather give an example.
Okay.
This is with regards to a bond and banks. So say I'm paying 5,000 a month for my bond. So in a year I'm paying 60,000. If I've got 60,000 cash and I give it to the bank, why do they still insist on still debiting monthly? Because they were going to make 60,000 anyway. Let's say it was a perfect world, no interest rate stayed the same for a year, etc. Even if I've given them what I'm going to give them in the year anyway, the 60K, why would they still want to debit my account monthly anyway? I never really get that.
Okay, Shalami, let me make the point. When you pay your bank every month, you say 5,000, used 5,000 as an example, a small portion of that actually comes off your capital. The bulk is interest. So when you put extra money into the bank, unless you make arrangements with them that you're putting this in and you don't for the next 12 months and you don't want them to debit, all they're doing is crediting that against the capital, which means you may pay slightly more money may go off the capital. But you've got to make special arrangements. So when people put extra monies into their bond, they need to inform the bank what their intentions are. Is this money that they're putting off against capital, or is this money they're putting off against the payments? They need to make that clear and talk to their bondholders, because the bondholders don't know exactly what's happening, because a lot of people put extra money to bring that capital down that much quicker, because the more you pay off the capital, the more that from your installments goes to reduce the capital. In the early stages of a bond, most of the amount you pay is debited against interest, not the capital. Speak to your bank.
Yeah, well, I wasn't actually looking at putting it like an extra amount. I just wanted to understand, because they were going to only get the 60K anyway, why, if I give them the 60K, why don't they just leave me for a year?
Well, they don't know. You see, they don't know without you.
So if I tell them,
tell them. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, Salumani, all the best.
Thanks.
In Makanda, GM. Good morning, GM.
Good morning, Brian and Cathy. It's concerning two-part, my question. I'm a bit frustrated, but we are stuck with this two-part and we need to move ahead. Brian, concerning transactions, especially the private companies, they're telling us for every transaction that you make, there will be a cost. Now, I wanted to find out, for both the GEPF, which is a government entity or a government-controlled fund, and the private companies, should one have an option of transferring money of the vested from the vested parties? We are leaving it aside because we cannot do anything from the savings and to the retirement and to the retirement pot. What options do we have? I tried reaching out to GEPF. I haven't gotten any joy. And the private companies, they are dilly-dallying, they are not giving us straight answers. I just wanted to check on the fine print. Some of us were not really good with this jargon, but I just wanted to check what options do we have. Should one not be willing to take out the money, because the money is there to be withdrawn, but if I have the desire to transfer back money that is in the savings pot into my retirement pot, what options do I have? Am I going to be charged? That's my question. I will hold a bit if you need clarity.
Okay. GM, you're not going to be charged, and you don't have to participate in the two-pot. You can opt out of the two-pot. You can actually say, I don't want to participate in the two-pot. The trouble is the new systems that have been in place, and I don't know whether any of those systems will allow for that. But you don't have to make use for it. You don't have to make use of the two-pot. Remember, the two-pot is monies going forward from the 1st September. But if you don't want to make use of it, you don't have to. What then you need to find out from the pension fund is how are those monies being invested? Because, you know, the 1/3 that goes into the pot that you can withdraw, they've got to be a lot more conservative, because let's assume you put in 1,000 Rand a month into that. At the end of the year, there's 12,000, and they've gone into something more aggressive and it's dropped and it's only 9,000, then there's going to be a real problem on their plate. So you need to talk to the company that you're in, ask them, you want to opt out, you do not want to participate, and what options do you have in having the monies invested with the other 2/3 which is the retirement pot. But you need to talk to the companies. Yes, there are hassles, there are delays, and not only because of the companies, because of SARS, because SARS are inundated now with enormous amount of tax returns, tax directives required, although they have automated the system, and I believe it's really working very well.
Okay.
Now, your response is eliciting another question, bro. The age factor, you are saying one can opt out. People under 55, do we have that choice?
Well, no, you don't have to make use of the pot. You don't have to withdraw from the pot. So you leave the money. So if you've got, let's say you've got 3,000 Rand going into your retirement fund, 2,000 is going into pot 1, which is the retirement pot, 1,000 is going into the savings pot. The only difference between the two may be an investment strategy, because the investment on your retirement will be treated differently to money market, where you may want to withdraw the money out within 12 months' time. So who's the company you with?
It's Signia.
Okay.
And GPF.
Okay. Now, I can't comment on GPF, but I will get details from them to see what you can do, and I'll also talk to Signia, and I will report back next Tuesday on this program what my findings were.
Because we are told that they are tailor-made. The vested pot is tailor-made. Let's, for hypothetically, let's say I took a balanced fund from a Signia. My retirement is a balanced fund. Apparently, my vested pot will remain balanced, my savings will remain balanced, and my retirement will remain balanced as well. Same as the GPF. That's what we are being told. Now, I wanted to find out, if I don't intend using my savings pot, why can't I take back the funds that are being, like the seeding capital that is created my savings back into my retirement, just to top it up? I know I will forfeit. Annually, I'm allowed to take out whatever is there, but now if I don't intend using those funds for whatever reason, I will forfeit for the year. But taking them back just to boost my retirement, the answers are not forthcoming, Brian.
Okay, well, I'll speak to Signia and I'll speak to GPF.
Thank you.
Yeah, super, GM, thanks.
Okay. All right, thanks for that, GM. Brian, as GM is asking the question, I'm wondering, does it have to do specifically with the return on investment?
It could be.
So, yes, that if it's in the savings part of course, because you have the option of accessing it and it's not ring-fenced like the one in the retirement pot, then the return on investment is different.
Yes, it could be, because
Yeah.
the strategy of a balanced fund is looking for a lot more growth.
Yeah.
The strategy of a GPF, it's like a savings account. You're putting, and I always say to people, if you want to invest and you tell me you're investing for a year, you can't invest for a year. You've got to be certain and secure, and you've got to be looking at money market funds or fixed deposits. That's exactly what the savings pot is. But I think he makes the very valid point.
Yeah.
What happens if someone feels aggrieved that they don't want that 1/3 going into the savings pot? They want it put into their retirement fund to get that additional growth, particularly if you've got 10 or 15 or 20 years to go to retirement.
Absolutely.
Look, there are systems problems. Remember, the old monies as at the 31st of August is ring-fenced and nothing changes there. But the new system is the 2/3 retirement fund, you will not be able to withdraw until retirement, whereas your amount up to the 31st of August that you've got in the vested, that's all your previous monies together with growth that you can draw. So again, but I think that is now governed by the new Pensions Act. There's nothing you can do there. But GM makes the point about maybe I can get a better return because I'm not going to draw the money.
Yeah. All right, GM, thanks for that good question. Brian is going to try and get more answers for us next week. I want to bring in some of the questions on the WhatsApp line before we continue with the callers.
Morning, Cathy and Brian Hirsch. Some of us cannot access the two-pot system currently. The administrator of the pension fund is congested. Also, the state entity I work for, some amendments has not been signed. Please give me feedback. Selvan KZN.
Selvan, I can't comment on every fund, but you're absolutely right. Some funds haven't got their rules registered yet, and if their rules are not registered, you can't withdraw. There are admin problems. I wish you'd stayed on the line because I'd like to know who the companies are that are giving problems, because I understand that the life companies are all ready and the retirement companies are all ready, but if these are private funds who haven't got the rules registered, there's no comment I can make. Yes, I did say a few weeks ago that don't expect to receive any monies for 60 days. Again, there's always the exception. Maybe people are receiving monies. There are admin hassles. There's also receiver of revenue directives that are required. And sometimes if anyone owes tax, you're not going to get that directive that easily. So you just need let me make one final comment on this. Anyone who's applying for the two-pot system, first, before you apply, check that your tax affairs are up to date, because you're going to get a terrible fright if you haven't and they suddenly deduct tax and you're expecting to get 25 or 28,000 and you suddenly get 1,000, 5,000 or even nothing.
All right. Thanks for that, Brian.
Good morning, Cathy. I have a question for Brian. My understanding is that a high inflation target will result in high interest rates and high prices in the economy. A low inflation target will result in low interest rates and low prices in the economy. But this government talks about growing the economy and reducing unemployment. How do you do that with an inflation target of 4.5%? Which business is going to borrow money with interest rates at 11% to increase production and hire more people? Personally, I prefer 2% as an inflation target like it is in developed economies, but to get inflation to 2% is going to cause a lot of social unrest and protest in this country. And I also really don't understand why this Reserve Bank insists on a high inflation target, because it is not reducing unemployment. In fact, I think Milton Friedman was correct that the economy adjusts itself to the natural rate of unemployment in the long run. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Lionel, thank you for that comment. I agree with you fully. Let's understand, the Reserve Bank is not responsible for economic growth. The Reserve Bank is responsible for inflation, and it sets those targets. I agree that very simply there should be some change in South Africa. Our circumstances are different. Unemployment is high, inflation is high. I fully agree with your comments, Lionel. Nothing more to say. I said it at the beginning. We should start reducing our inflation, our interest rates sooner than later.
Okay.
Princess Getting Princess Cathy. Good morning to you. Good morning to your team. Great show always. Good morning to the legend guests, Brian Hirsch. Big up, Brian. It's Uncle JJ, the truck driver. Cathy, there are people who are using passports. Can Brian please find out what's going on? They can't have the access to the system. They need this money from savings port. Please, Cathy, help them. I know Brian is a legend. He will find out, please. There are people who are legal using passports. They need their money from savings. 2 pots.
Uncle JJ, must I ask who people is? Are you among those people? Brian?
You know, the question is, I assume that someone doesn't have an ID document and they're using passports. So again, that's the first time I've been asked that question. Uncle JJ, we look forward to hearing from you next week. I need to check that up with Home Affairs and with insurance companies. Right. I would have thought a passport is sufficient, but I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. All right, Brian. I'll give you a chance to actually look into it. Yeah. One would wonder if you need an ID document of sort, why the passport for those people who are not naturalized South Africans, why that wouldn't suffice for pension companies.
Yeah. Look, for FICA, you definitely need an ID. But I don't know the answer about a passport, and my administrators will know. So I'll get the answer. And JJ, together with questions, asked me about Signia and GPF and the 2-pot. I'll reply next week.
All right. Let's do this. Let's take this break. Pro in Parktown, Yanush in Cape Town. We'll start off with you on the other side of this latest break.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their 3rd consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN8 final. Wafa Wafa! Catch the reigning champs, Orlando Pirates, up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday, 5 October at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
At the South African breweries, the beers are brewed with 95% local and natural ingredients. From seed to sip, every step of the process supports a thriving agricultural sector and sustains over 250,000 livelihoods. So, next time you enjoy a cold one, remember you're supporting local farmers. South African breweries, brewing more than just beer, brewing a future with more cheers. South Africa, be sharp, not for sale for persons under the age of 18.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
All right, we continue with Talking Finance. Let me go to Parktown Pro. Good morning.
Okay, how are you?
Yes.
I'm fine, man. I want to ask only 2 questions. Cathy, I'm working somewhere in the department as a security officer from private companies. Our payslip, they deduct provident fund, they deduct SARS money, like UIF, but our money's going nowhere. When you go check there, they will not tell you that there's no money coming from your company to SARS. No provident fund you can find, but they're always deducting. And the second question is, how come these private companies, they get a job from government departments like health, education, justice, and everywhere, whereas they are not complying and they are not paying the people accordingly? We want to know where our provident money, what can we do in order to get our provident fund money and our SARS money? Where are they doing? What are they doing with that money? Because I can't understand why a government always giving tenders to those companies who are not complying. I think there is something fish here. Maybe there are others who are getting chochos with these top high officials of the government of South Africa. This thing is painful. You can see we security officers, we are in trouble. Thank you very much.
There was a big article this week in one of the financial journals talking about a company that's got themselves into quite a lot of hot water with the Financial Service Conduct Authorities regarding non-payment of monies deducted from employees and not paid over to the Provident Fund. There was a ruling against this company. I am going to be writing to the pension adjudicator because I cannot understand why they are taking such a haphazard approach to companies who are not paying your money over. So let's divide it into two. The one is the tax deducted that has to be paid over by the 7th of the month, and the receiver of revenue, if that money is not received, or should be taking that up. There's nothing I can do there. But on the funny monies that are not being paid over, the company has to be reported to the FSCA that you are aware that money is being deducted and not being paid over. It is the FSCA, the Financial Service Conduct Authorities, that it's not being paid over. And you need to put pressure on your employer as a group, not as an individual, because you don't want to be ostracized and stick out like a sore thumb. Sore thumb, not a thumb, a sore thumb. You need to do that with your employer. The employee body needs to put pressure on the employer. They have no right to hold your money. You're losing out. And when eventually they brought to book, they do have to pay over your contributions together with interest. But you may be losing out because maybe you're only going to get interest and not the investment returns. So all I can say is you need to put pressure on your company as an employee body. Get together with your officials and put pressure on the company to make sure there's no excuse for them deducting monies from your salary and not paying it over, firstly to SARS and secondly to your fund.
Okay, thanks for that. Janusz, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Brian. Brian, I've got a question to you. Listen, I think that I did good investment and I follow the logic and I'm talking about the life insurance. I insured my wife because it's logical, because the woman lives longer. But, and so for more than 20, maybe 30 years, I'm paying into this insurance. But now it looks like she became sick, and I don't know who's going to go first. And then all this money, which if she go before me, going to be lost, because I'm not going to get a cent from that. I know that, for instance, what's going to happen if let's say, example, there's a car accident and then we both lost our life. Will this money from this insurance go to Will? I don't think so, because it's a contract, isn't it? So I would like to also to make some sort of awareness to the people. Some of our wives, they are not healthy rather, and we are putting this money to protect them. I think we should be more sort of taking information about it. And then, what is your opinion about? Is it any way to any better way, fair way to save the money for both of us? If one of them died, that gets, or the other one died, is more flexible, not like one way. Because when she go, all the money are lost, isn't it?
No, that's not correct, Eunice. That's not correct. You've got a policy, you pay a premium, and for that premium you get an amount of sum assured. You're insured for an amount. In the event of either one of you dying, there are beneficiaries on the policy, and if you are your wife's beneficiary and she dies, may she live for longer. But if she does die, the money will be paid to you. Any policy you've got, if you die, if she's the beneficiary, it'll be paid to her. The beneficiary nomination on a life policy will override any comments in your will. But if there are no beneficiaries, then your will apply, and who is going to inherit from you in terms of your will. And again, let's assume you don't even have a will, then you die interstate succession under that ruling, and then it will either go down first to children, then go up to parents, then go across to brothers and sisters and cousins and nephews. So very simply, that is the method of payment. But the payment will be made based on the nominated beneficiary that is registered with the insurance company.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Eunice.
All right. Thanks for that question, Eunice. Okay, I've got a question for you, Brian. One of our listeners wants clarity around the distribution, basically, of the different pots. He sent us a screen grab of his fund currently. It has a total balance of just over 99,000 rand. Under the vested pot, there's nothing in there. In the non-vested pot, there's 89,000 rand. In the retirement pot, there's nothing. In the savings pot, there is just over 9,000 rand. So I want to play his voice note, and then you can respond.
Okay.
Morning, Cathy. I just want to know what's happening here, because always they talk about the three pots. The vested pot, retirement pot, and savings pot. But on my profile, I can see the fourth pot, the non-vested pot. And my money is on there, the money that I accumulated before the new law start. Please, I just want to know what's happening on this invested pot. Can I be able to withdraw this money or what when I resign or get retrenched? Thank you, Cousin Pilem Bonane.
Okay, Brian, I need you behind the microphone.
Okay, I've stood up because I wanted to see the shot that you sent us. I don't understand the statement, because under your invested pot, there should be the 99,313. That's what should be under your vested pot. Under the retirement pot, there's nothing in yet, and under the savings pot, there's nothing yet, because it's only future contributions made to the fund after the 1st of September, and contributions have only just been made across. Contributions would have been deducted as at around about the 25th of September. So it's only your contributions that was made in this month. If you look at your pay slip, 2/3 of that should go into the retirement pot, and 1/3 should go into the savings pot. So there's got to be, so if there was 9,000 paid, then if that was the deduction, say for the month in September, 6,600 should have gone into the retirement pot, and 3,300, it's actually 3,310 should have gone to the savings pot. I think you need to query that with the company.
All right. I hope that helped to our listener. It sounds like there's something basically that is incorrect with how they have allocated those monies according to the different pots. So
and
just ask them to recheck that.
And just to repeat, the vested pot you can draw if you resign, if you get retrenched. It's yours. It's not at all locked in as the future contributions are.
Okay. Brian, your number quickly?
011 440
880
4808.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's 11 o'clock.
Have a good day, Kath.
The top stories at 11. Traditional leaders speak on Lusikisiki massacre, and suspected extortionists arrested in Mpumalanga. A very good morning to you. The Traditional Leaders Organization, Contralesa, has called on the National Police Commissioner to come up with strategies to deal with crime, especially murder cases in the country. It has condemned the killing of 18 people at a village in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape over the weekend. Contralesa President Kgosi Matuba Mokoena says many South African citizens are calling for a referendum on the death penalty.
It is clear that South African citizens are on their own. The rule of law has been eroded. Contralesa is not surprised why so many South African citizens are calling for a referendum on the death penalty. The National Commission must come up with strategies on how to deal with crime in this country and stop behaving like a bodyguard to a minister. Wherever the minister goes, the National Commissioner will be there. He must come up with a strategy together with his provincial commissioners.
Police have arrested 2 men accused of demanding a protection fee from a businesswoman in Kanyamazane outside Mbombela in Mpumalanga. One of the arrested men is reported to be an ANC councillor. Businesswoman Sweetness Shabangu opened a case of extortion after people demanded a protection fee for her to continue operating. Shabangu says she refused to pay, and a few days later, the premises of a recycling company was trashed. Police spokesperson Donald Mdluli.
2 male suspects have been arrested, one in Pinar, the other one at Kanyamazane between Monday and this morning, which is Tuesday 1 October, following cases of extortion-related incidents whereby a female victim reported these cases. And yesterday, the acting provincial commissioner of the SAPS in Mpumalanga, Major General Dr. Zef Mkhwanazi, indicated to the woman that police will act swiftly regarding these cases, hence the arrest.
Action SA will today lay criminal charges against Justice Minister Thembi Simelane at the Polokwane police station in Limpopo. The party is alleging a violation of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. It follows revelations that Simelane solicited a questionable loan from Gundo Wealth Solutions of over R500,000 during her tenure as Polokwane mayor. Here's Action SA's Ethel Trollope.
There was another article that alleged that the loan agreement that was referred to by the minister appears to have been backdated, and there are all sorts of irregularities in that loan agreement. So that's when I took a decision that I was now going to lay a criminal charge with the South African Police Services, because all my efforts today have resulted in nothing. And we believe as Action SA that the Minister of Justice should be beyond reproach. Just yesterday, I was sitting in a Judicial Services Commission meeting, and the minister was there while we were considering about appointing of new judges. Her name needs to be cleared one way or the other.
Parliament says yesterday was the deadline for national government departments and state-owned entities to submit their annual reports and financial statements for the 2023-24 financial year. They are required in terms of the law to table their reports within this time period. Parliament spokesperson Moloto Motapo says that annual reports are a crucial oversight mechanism that allow Parliament to hold the executive accountable for its performance against annual plans and service delivery commitments.
Once these reports, which include financial statements and performance information, are submitted to Parliament, departments appear before various committees of Parliament to account for their performance, particularly in relation to the services provided to the public as per the budget approved by Parliament. The Auditor General plays a critical role in auditing government expenditure, and Parliament, amongst other instruments, relies on the reports from the National Treasury as well as the Auditor General to assess the executive's performance and financial management.
And U.S. President Joe Biden will travel to the hard-hit state of North Carolina today to survey the damage there as whole communities remain cut off due to flooding from Hurricane Helene. Some 2 million people are without power as 50,000 personnel try to restore electricity across multiple states due to the storm. More than 100 people are known to have died after the hurricane brought havoc to 6 states, especially North Carolina. Roads remain blocked by debris, and downed communication lines have hampered search and rescue efforts. Biden says the government is helping the state with the recovery operations.
With federal support, the state has reopened 220 roads, which are going to help responders reach people and get the support they need quickly. Right now, thousands of federal personnel are deployed in your communities, supporting search and rescue, debris removal, power restoration, and getting cell networks back online so folks can connect to their loved ones.
The top story this hour, Traditional Leaders Organization Contralesa has called on the National Police Commissioner to come up with strategies to deal with crime, especially murder cases in the country. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Mohlahlana.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Win your share of 50,000 Rand when you play Winning at Live with OneLive. Don't forget to enter on our website, safm.co.za. Stay tuned to the morning brief on SAFM. Keep your phone on loud and we might be the one to change your life. OneLive is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. OneLive, changing lives.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa. Catch the reigning champs Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the third and final hour of the show. It's always insightful when we have Brian Hirsch on the show. Some of you still asking for his number, Brian's number. We did give it out in a bit of a rush as he ended off the show. It is 011 880 4888. That's 011 880-4888, and he always asks that you please identify where you are calling from, especially if you're leaving him a message on the answering machine. Tell him which part of the country you're from, so that he's able to ask the different regions of his office to get in touch with you and follow up with you when they are responding to your queries. Okay, then we're getting into the final hour of the show. Geesh, where has the time gone? Where's the time gone this morning? So for our final conversation, we are speaking to Professor Wiseman Ngutlu, who is really a luminary in many ways, and he's a celebrated chartered accountant and paved the way in the industry for so many others. He joins us via the Zoom platform this morning. Professor Ngutlu, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Thank you very much for having me.
So this year, of course, is a milestone year for you in many respects. By the way, we've been doing your book on the book reading for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We are going to continue with it, and this is just a note to our listeners to say that just because we're speaking to him
thank you
today,
very much for that.
it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue with the book. We are going to stay with it, and it's a life of purpose by Professor Luvuyo Wochela, and it really tells the life and times of Professor Ngutlu. So I was saying that it's a milestone year for you. You celebrated your 80th birthday earlier on in the year, and I'm curious to know, the beautiful and ripe age of 80, what are some of the reflections that it has brought with it? Hello, Prof. I'm not sure what's going on with this line. We seem to be having a bit of a delay with the connection. He is joining us via the Zoom platform. So hopefully it's something that we'll be able to fix. Okay, let me do this. Let's take a quick break while we try and reestablish our connection to Professor Ngutlu. Brian's number 011 880 4888. 011 880 4888. We'll take a quick break. I'm back with Professor Ngutlu in a moment.
when self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face. He gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Mubango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Mubango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Mubango, ukovela panda. SABC2.
Ngaba Mabece on SAFM.
I mean, we're shining the spotlight on road carnages and the number of children who die in accidents.
It is a very, very necessary conversation to have. Our children are extremely vulnerable in traffic, and every day between 7 and 8 children die on our roads as pedestrians. And it doesn't make the headlines, it doesn't make the news. Even Nelson Mandela's own grandchild died in a car crash.
Yeah, that's right. On the opening of the World Cup in 2010. Yep.
His son died in a crash.
Who?
Nelson Mandela's son.
Uthembekile, that's right.
Many, many years ago, he was in jail. He wasn't allowed to go to the funeral, if I remember correctly.
That's true.
So nobody is excluded from being a victim of a road crash.
Peggy Mars, founder of Wheel Well.
Tuesday Takeover on The Viewpoint. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
You and I have a country to build, difficult conversations to have, solutions to find, and stories to tell. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 p.m. to midnight.
The Meeting Point with Koketso Sachane.
Pravin has really helped us understand what has become to be known as the phenomenon of state capture. He initiated this group of academics who produced the first set of academic material on what we understood then to be state capture under the title of Connecting the Dots, which I think enables South Africans for the first time to understand the various issues that they were really trying to comprehend and make sense of. And in that way, I think, created the basis for the public challenge to state capture as it became known, both within the ANC but also more within the public domain.
Nishan Bolton, the Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation.
The Meeting Point on SAFM. If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Sipiwe Tshabalala, former Kaizer Chiefs midfielder, Bafana international who scored that wonder goal. Tshabalala, 50th cap, Tshabalala scores! So that was the moment. I was sitting in the stands, you were on the field scoring a goal, the opening goal of World Cup 2010. Just take us back to that moment and how much it's meant for you throughout your career.
It was a big moment for South Africa, a big moment for the continent. First World Cup on home soil. Also a message to the rest of the world that Africa is capable. Africa was ready to host a tournament of that magnitude, and from a player perspective, a dream come true. To play in the historic World Cup.
Top Sport on SAFM. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on The Talking Point. We're speaking to Professor Wiseman Ngutlu. I'm hoping that our connection to him is better than it has been in the last couple of minutes. Prof. Ngutlu, can you hear me loud and clear? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Cathy. I can hear you.
Wonderful. Perfect. So I was saying that, you reached a milestone birthday this year, the very tender and ripe age of 80. and
Yes.
I wonder, Prof, just some of your general reflections on life, your own journey, before I bring in perhaps the country, because you as a leader are recognized not only for your personal achievements, but what those have meant for this country.
Yes, Cathy. No, thank you very much for arranging for the reading of the book on air. I really appreciate that. My story is a very simple one, very typical of the early African families who came into contact with the missionaries and took an interest in education. So my grandfather was fortunate to be introduced, to get to know Theo Soga, who was a great Presbyterian in the Eastern Cape. And my father, Theo, is named after him. So when I was born, then the ambition was that I get education, because they had realized at that time that, there was limited access to land. It was very difficult for African people to sustain themselves. The new thing was education. So really in the book, then I really pay tribute to them for the sacrifices they made for me to get education. I also share with the readers my own struggles in terms of defining a purpose for myself at a very early stage, appreciating that education was the path, the way that will enable me to get out of poverty and have better opportunity in life. So I made the sacrifices. And then at a later stage, when I became aware that there were no Africans who were in chartered accountants, professional accountants, I took an interest in that, because the upbringing of that I received from my parents, that gave me a great sense of self-confidence and self-reliance. When I became aware of this fact that there were no Black Africans who were chartered accountants, it just got me very interested in really breaking the barrier and show that, because my parents had taught me to believe in myself and also believe that, intelligence is randomly distributed. There are very talented people among Black people, talented people among Indians, talented people among whites. So among Africans, there's no reason why they shouldn't be chartered accountants. So it became a great challenge for me that I must break this barrier. I'm grateful that I got support and managed to do that. And after I qualified, there were young people much more talented than me, who were crazy enough to think that I can mentor them. Then I had that privilege of working with some of the bright people in the country. I think in the book I mentioned some of them. I think Johnson Jege, you know him, is a great chartered accountant. People like Futi Toba, Nonkuleko Koboto, and the previous Auditor General, Nombembe. They were either my students or were in that cycle. So I was grateful that people intelligence, much more intelligent than me, took their interest and became chartered accountants. I'm very humbled by the contribution that they continue to make. And I'm grateful that I was privileged to mentor them.
Being the first black person to qualify as a chartered accountant in the country, in many ways, would also mean that it may not have been your intention when you started, but because you are the first, it does come with it a burden of creating vision for what then the path can potentially look like for other black people that would come after you. Did you, at what point did you become aware of that? Because your leadership and those who have worked with you, who've sat in boardrooms with you, who've watched you push for transformation within corporate South Africa, credit you with having done that intentionally so, and not just having left it to chance.
Yes, Cathy, you are right. It became a great burden on me when I realized that I was first Black African to qualify as a chartered accountant. And actually, what really I felt that it was my responsibility to prove was that my passing the exams was not an aberration, something that I'm not exceptional in any way. I had to prove that quickly. That is why the first step that I took was to accept the challenge to go to the university, the branch of the University of Fort Hare in Umtata, where I had an opportunity to start a department of accounting from scratch, so that those who aspire to be chartered accountants can look to me as a role model. So really, and create a conducive environment for them to believe in themselves. That now this young men from rural areas like them had made it, they can also make it. So that's the first thing, was take steps to make sure that more Black African people qualify. That's why I started the Department of Accounting. I also started my own practice, and I said this. So that became a big responsibility. But Cathy, it has also encouraged me in terms of taking myself seriously in terms of being a role model, because I'm conscious of the fact that many young people, very talented, look to me as their mentor, as a role model. So when in whatever sphere I've been privileged to serve, I've always kept this in mind, that I mustn't disappoint them. That's why I never stopped learning about leadership, getting myself inspired by great leaders, reading their books, and really looking at others who have succeeded as leaders and using them as my own models. And I'm grateful that then so far those inspirations and my acceptance of this responsibility of being a role model has actually strengthened me to try to live to those standards. And I'm grateful that at this mature age of 80, I have not let the country down, and I'm not let those who look to me for as role model, I have not let them down.
That role and influence is not only limited to academia, Prof. It also, again, extends to what is, on the one hand, yes, corporate South Africa, but even beyond that, when I look at the work that you did with the Black Management Forum, and of course also as the president of the BMF at a particular time. What is it that you would have wanted us to achieve as a country that you perhaps had identified through your own experiences was inhibiting the role, particularly of Black professionals in this country?
Cathy, I thought we would never forget that we, as the educated few, we have a responsibility to create conditions and give support to the majority of Black people to actually have access to quality and relevant education, so that we stop being a minority, but it be the majority of Black South Africans who get quality education and be in a position to really participate meaningfully in the modern scientific and technological economy of the country. The sad thing now is that, we're 30 years into democracy, but it's very sad, Cathy, to note that, Black Africans who are university graduates in this country were still less than 6% of the adult population. And also people with matric in the country are about 34% of adults in the country. So really, what this really leads to is that even when there's economic growth, it's only a small percentage of the Black Africans who benefit from that growth. So my greatest disappointment is that we have not given adequate attention to the issue of enhancing the quality and relevance of education, especially in rural areas and townships, so that we can have millions of Africans, Black Africans, given knowledge and capabilities to participate meaningfully in the mainstream economy of the country. So for me, this is still a matter that we need to address. Otherwise, even when things have turned around, only the minority that happens to be in this 6% or 34% of adults will be able to benefit from those improved conditions and be able to get higher salaries. But the majority of Black Africans are not going to participate because they lack the basic knowledge and capabilities that are required to participate meaningfully in a scientific and technological economy of the 21st century.
In what ways, Prof, do you think that we need to be reorganizing our society in order, again, for even that focus, if it's on education, to be on not just education, but providing a quality education for those that are able to access it?
Cathy, when we attained freedom, our leaders, in their wisdom, they focused, they accepted that we have to get political freedom first and be able to have ourselves taking responsibility for our own destiny. But then what really we didn't give adequate attention, and on my side continues to be disappointing, that we're not prioritizing the issue of spreading quality education and taking steps to improve the quality of education in the townships, and making sure that and improving the relevance as well. The teaching of mathematics in the rural schools, in the township schools, leaves much to be desired. And also the curriculum, given the fact that we have a responsibility to use education to transition our people from traditional way of life to the scientific ways of today. We should have made sure that at an early days, primary school, secondary school, we have a number of streams that equip young people with technical skills in electricity, robotics, plumbing, and so on, so that the majority of our people who at least complete grade 12 have got skills that are relevant to the modern economy, can actually be self-employed.
All right.
To have a situation now where the majority of people that leave the schools still are unemployable, it's a big failure on our part.
I'm going to pause you there. We're going to continue the conversation shortly.
A very good morning to you with the news headlines at 11:30. Ke Modupi Mohlahlana. ANC Gauteng Chair Panyaza Lesufi insists that there is no division between the national and the provincial ANC. The Traditional Leaders Organization Contralesa has called on the National Police Commissioner to come up with strategies to deal with crime, especially murder cases in the country. And more than 20 people have been killed in an airstrike by Nigeria's military on a village in the northwest of the country. Details of these and other stories at noon.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. You're listening to the show, and of course, I'm in conversation with Professor Wiseman Ngutlu. He is the former Chancellor of the University of Pretoria, and really a luminary within the chartered accountant profession, but also just within the corporate sector. A leader that is looked up to by so many. The first person to qualify at the time as a black chartered accountant. So really way ahead of his time in many respects. Prof. Ngutlu, if perhaps we can come back to, you've expressed this disappointment about what education was supposed to deliver for the majority of South Africans versus what it has.
Yes.
We, of course, will look at the annual budgets, and even now we can take the education budget, and there will be a lot of bemoaning about the allocations, the fact that the money simply is not enough for everything that needs to be done. In the same breath, however, we will also be dealing with reports of corruption, reports of maladministration, mismanagement, misspending of money. How do we get back to realigning some form of vision for our country? Today, when we talk about what the future of South Africa needs to look like, from a government point of view, you'll hear NDP referenced, Vision 2030, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that we're so far off the targets of NDP 2030 that even mentioning it as a document is almost out of kilter with where society itself is going to be in 2030. And the relevance of some of the issues in that document for South Africa today, and whether that should still be where we want to be in 2030. But overall, just from that vision building, how can we create that? Because I certainly don't feel that we have it. Some may disagree, and I'm happy to take those views, but I don't think that we have a clear vision for what this country needs to look like, not only in 2030, despite the NDP, but even beyond that, in 2050.
Yes, no, thank you very much for your question. And also, you are right. I agree with you 100%. We need a new aspiration for South Africa that clearly talks to our history, that is going to say what kind of society we want to be in 2040, 2050, and so on. We need a vision that is really compelling to our people, that talks to that history. So you are also right that the NDP is not that vision. It's a pity, really, that what happened, the vision, coming up with a national development plan was a good idea. But it came up at a time when there wasn't a unifying leader of South Africa that would articulate that and who would be seen to be committed to the best interests of all South Africans. So that undermined the standing of the National Development Plan from the beginning. And also, the National Development Plan is not supported by goals and also doesn't have a technical planning commission that could really make sure that there's proper plan implementation and targets, and it is used to energize our people. So one of the things, my suggestion is that we need to restart the process of coming up with a new vision, ambition for South Africa, with a properly articulated national development plan with proper goals on human development, education, health, and of course, scientific and technological development of the country, and do that, under the leadership of a credible leader who is really can mobilize so that it becomes the new ideology for South Africa. Political parties still tend to talk about capitalism, socialism. All those things to me are not relevant. What is relevant is a binding ambition that talks to our aspiration as a people. Aspiration, for instance, that is clear, or I don't have time to articulate it comprehensively here, is that we're underdeveloped. South Africa, we are one of the least developed countries in terms of, life expectancy is lower than the middle income countries at 64%, something like that. And in other respects also, so we can set an ambition that we want to be a developed country by 2050. And this is what it's going to take. And this is how we measure our progress. Is education, is health, and is agricultural output that we can feed ourselves, and so on and so on. So we need a new national development plan that talks to our aspirations as a people, and that must be led by a credible leader who can unify the country. Possibly, I don't know whether the government of national unity gives an opportunity to do that. So we can bring all South Africans across the political divides to actually be unified under one ambition that we can all, subscribe to. And then when the political parties change, that will be one unifying thing that everybody will say, this is not something of the ANC or D or anybody, this is what South African. So if this process, for instance, of political dialogue that we're talking about, could actually start that process of coming up with a new national development plan with clearly articulated goals and also a technical secretariat to make sure that there is capacity and competence to actually deliver on that plan.
I'm fascinated
I agree with you in other words.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by your choice of descriptor in terms of a credible leader that can bring everybody together. And when one looks at our political landscape currently, of course, quite divided, quite fractured, and certainly one doesn't get the sense, at least, that we are going to be operating in a space where you have single party dominance. It looks like the future could well be, around the sharing of power between political parties. How much then should we be looking at leaders within the political space to be the ones that are crafting or even shaping that, especially because much of our problems as a country have emanated from the political and the ways in which political parties have chosen to run their affairs that has creeped into the state, has resulted in a decapacitation of the state and then the social problems that, or contributed to the social problems that we see today.
Cathy, I've looked at the countries that really have managed to achieve rapid development and take their people out of poverty. The common factor in these countries, in my review of history, is the emergence of a credible leader at a particular point in time with a compelling vision, who becomes, in terms of his own conduct and behavior, the role model for the country and get trusted by the people that what drives him or her is what is best for all the people of the country. So, yes, we've fractured politics, but there's still space for that kind of leader to emerge. I know that, for instance, when we talk about direct election of the president by the citizens, there's a risk of a populist coming up. But in my view, I would rather take that risk and say that we must have a dialogue as a country, that our future leader, we must have a dialogue, through that dialogue agree on the criteria that should guide us in selecting our leaders. And therefore, we agree that as a country, our leader, our future leader must at least meet these criteria. And that possibly we de-link the question of the political parties to the term of the president and get the people to elect the president once. We may make a mistake once and get up a populist, but somehow we need a role model for the country who really trusted can really guide us to a better future. You know, democracy on its own without this inspiration by a leader who really takes the country forward, who is trusted by everybody, is very, very, very difficult. I know that you are a fractured country, but even in the context of a national government, of a government of national unity, for me, I think there is a possibility of such a leader emerging. But as a country, we must have this conversation about criteria. There must be some minimum requirements that we stipulate for one to be supported as a leader. And the educated class, we have a responsibility to do that. I hope the NGOs can start that kind of work. Thank you.
In terms of your own legacy, Professor Nkutlu, and again, where people find themselves today, what we see a lot of is that where we have talent in this country, they prefer to stay in the private sector. They don't want to come into the public sector. And so there's always a debate of how are we going to improve, the capacity, the expertise in the public sector when so few people that are competing at the highest level don't want anything to do with it. Do you think that there's an opportunity for that view to change within perhaps some of the younger generations? And I'm thinking now maybe people 45 and younger who would have the opportunity really to pave the way forward for what the next 10, 15 years might look like for the country. And they're sitting with that expertise and that know-how and that innovative thinking.
Yeah, Cathy, you are right. The politics of our country are such that they are not attractive to talented, well-educated young people. They see opportunities mainly in the private sector. Possibly the politics, of course, coming from a liberation background, which is very new. The tendency has been really to look to people with proven political credentials for positions of leadership. You must have been in exile, you must be in prison, but there must be some. But I just hope, as we mature as a country, you talk about young people who are below 45, we can think differently now about who should lead our country. It should be people who understand the fourth industrial revolution, for instance. See, who should lead us and take us forward. How we interest them in the politics. Possibly, we have gone through this period of polarization where we had many political parties standing up for politics. And now we're seeing the government of national unity. We don't know what the next stage is going to be. Possibly this thing of talking about modeling our politics in such a way that what I'm talking about, the political environment can become attractive to these young people who are below 45, who are better educated than my generation, for instance. But that's our best hope. We must change the political environment in such a way that, there will be opportunities for these youngsters to take an interest in politics and also be convinced that they can actually make a difference. That's why I'm bringing up the issue of a president who's elected directly by the people, so that one is not beholden to a political party, like the French in particular, and all that. So it's only that kind of environment that would attract I don't want to use examples to give you names, but there are youngsters who are really on top in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, these new ideas who have proven themselves in the private sector or at universities as leaders, who we could consider really to take us forward. Unless we're able to do that, Cathy, as South Africa, you know, I'm afraid it will remain the least developed continent, among the least developed countries as Africans, even up to 2050.
Professor Wiseman Nkutlu, we're going to leave it on that note. Let me thank you so much for your time and for your reflections. That's why we wrap it up on the show today. Up next is the book reading and, of course, more of Professor Nkutlu's book.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of A Life of Purpose, written by Luvuyo Wochela and Lumkile Wiseman Nkutlu. The reader is Lerato Velase.
The first president of Abasa was Geoffrey van Rooyen. Of course, by 1985, the internal struggle for freedom had intensified. Civil society and labor unions combined forces. For blacks in business, the Black Management Forum, BMF, had become a strong voice working closely with other black business organizations, NAFCOC, and the Foundation for African Business and Consumer Services, FABCOS. Abasa then focused on the advancement of blacks in the accountancy profession at a time when the accountancy professional bodies had no program directed at mitigating the neglect caused by apartheid. The first attempt at reaching out was the formation of the Eden Trust in the mid-1980s. Although Wiseman was by then no longer directly involved in the accounting practice, his colleagues at W.L. Nkutlu & Co. became very active in Abasa. Meanwhile, a white-dominated South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, SAICA 1980, coming out of a much longer history, had been established as the preeminent accountancy body. SAICA only developed substantive programs for increasing blacks in the profession during the mid-1990s. Implementation commenced in earnest with the appointment of Ignatius Sihole as the executive president of SAICA in 2000. In 1985, when Abasa was formed, there were fewer than 10 African chartered accountants. The number didn't immediately swell after that, but clearly Abasa paved the way for an increase in the numbers of African chartered accountants. Within the African continent, Abasa had followed and modeled itself on the African Accounting Council, founded in Algiers in 1979, to provide assistance to institutions which catered for the standardization of accounting and the promotion of education and further training and research. Wiseman was not one of the founders of Abasa, but he did attend its launch and he supported its early campaigns, particularly the lobby for bursary schemes for black students from SAICA and his firm, W.L. Nkutlu & Co. His firm had already advanced some of the objectives of Abasa as early as 1978. Importantly, it had continued on this path even after the formation of Abasa, as it was still abuzz with young trainees during 1986 and after. A young Themba Zakuza, who had completed his BCom degree at the University of the North, was so inspired by the legacy of Wiseman Nkutlu that he traveled to meet him in Umtata without a prior appointment. In his endeavor to register for his articles with W.L. Nkutlu & Co., he twice made the journey of about 8 kilometers between UNITRA and Wiseman's home at Fort Gale before he finally came face to face with the man. After an inspiring conversation, Wiseman referred him to the care of Wakeford Dondashe. Themba couldn't believe his luck when he was immediately admitted to start his articles. For the next 4 years, while he resided in Umtata with other hardworking articles clerks, he gained valuable experience under the tutelage of Wakeford and another accountant, Jackie Boyson. He was equally impressed with the time Wiseman still devoted to the firm, despite his busy schedule at UNITRA. In the boardroom of the firm, Wiseman's 1976 qualification certificate was on display and was a source of inspiration for many young trainees. On a different front, it was clear soon after his return to the position of Deputy Vice-Chancellor late in 1984 that he had become an important participant in guaranteeing worthy education in black institutions. His office drove the establishment of health sciences that became the 6th faculty of UNITRA from 1985. When he took over the vice-chancellorship from Van der Merwe in 1987, his university studies had expanded beyond the accounting profession, and he was involved primarily in education and human development, as well as the debates about an economic development policy. Being a person who believed that scientific and technological capabilities are key determinants for the advancement of nations, he understood that he had to sustain quality education. Despite the viciousness of the apartheid system and the struggle against it, he and his team were steadfast in maintaining UNITRA as an open and progressive university. Following his appointment as Vice-Chancellor, he worked hard to neutralize Kaiser Matanzima by appointing a new UNITRA Chancellor in his place. Mr. R.L. Peteni, a linguist and a former senior lecturer in the English department at Forte, was recruited to the Chancellor's position. That was a strategic move as it detached Matanzima from UNITRA and essentially terminated the role the Chancellor had played since the university was formed. In his first year of vice-chancellorship, his fourth and last child was born. Another boy whose names Bandile, they have increased, Baphelele, and they are enough, Lwazi, knowledge, epitomize the fulfillment of the family. The elder siblings, Aqalisile, Unathi, and especially Njongonkulu,